Hey, hope you had a great holiday, Christmas, Merry Christmas, all of that. We certainly did, and we're back to get you ready for the Bucs at Miami Dolphins next to last week of the regular season. If there's going to be a postseason for the Bucs, pretty much need to win this game. I mean, pending the outcome of the Carolina Panthers and Seahawks, who play, I believe, at the same time. So there'll be a little scoreboard watching, maybe.
I mean, we're in the postseason now. I mean, that's essentially what it is.
But they've been saying that, but now it really is the postseason.
Now it is, because a loss today and you might be eliminated.
This could be an elimination game. If Carolina is able to beat Seattle and you lose, if you're the Bucs and you lose to Miami, you are done, my friend. Your season is over. Enjoy Teddy ball game against whoever the backup quarterback against Andy Dalton in that final game at Tampa. Whew, that would be something. Or it could be that these two teams, meet the last week of the regular season and all the NFC South marbles are on the table. So it's going to be one, the other, or both. But it's a huge game, obviously. When you've lost 6 out of 7, they kind of been saying, they're saying all the right things. It's not a bad, like I've been in bad locker rooms where there was no hope. These guys still feel they have enough in there to get this done in these final 2 weeks. They're all amazed that they still have control of their destiny, but they do. And so that certainly is the carrot, right? But they've had that for a while, and it hasn't amounted to squadouche. The one thing I will say is that I am firmly convinced, this is my opinion, there's no facts based on this next statement, just my opinion, but I'm convinced that the Dolphins, in their own way, and what I mean by that is by playing Quinn Ewers, their number 3 quarterback, and bypassing Zach Wilson, and of course, benching Tua Tagovailoa in their own way, the Miami Dolphins are starting to sound like Stephen A. In their own way, they do not want to win this game. They are tanking. I think that somewhere along the line, the message was sent from Stephen Ross, maybe not directly, but like, hey, we should get a look at this 7th round quarterback, don't you think? Right? And there's a lot of reasons you may want to do that. Maybe you don't want Tua Tagovailoa getting hurt. I don't know. But you went right past poor Zach Wilson, who still, can't understand why. And, obviously his first outing wasn't that great. He had a couple of interceptions, Ewers did. And I think the Bengals put up like 40 against him.
Joe Burrow went off.
Yeah, Joe Burrow can do that to you. So Miami's defense has not been playing that elite. And there's no more desperate team in the NFL than the Bucs for a win right now. I can't think of one. They've got to stop the bleeding. They really do. And they should be a better football team than a Miami team that has a rookie quarterback making his second start in the NFL ever. And, oh, by the way, not that he's, Mr. Irrelevant like Brock Purdy, but he was a 7th round pick. So a lot of teams went right by this guy for one reason or another, and he's now your quarterback. And I know one thing about Todd Bowles I am sure of, because I've had the conversation with him on that patio out there, is that when he sees a rookie quarterback, even more so than normal, he is prone to bring pressure. Like, we're going to pressure, and do it early, because he says that if he sees that quarterback's head drop just once to look at the rush, it's over. He's got him. And so he's going to test this young quarterback, and yours is either going to sink or swim. You might make a huge play. You might have, opportunities to score touchdowns on some of these blitzes. But rest assured that early in this game, Todd Bowles is not going to now. They have to be commit to the run. And you can do both. You can put a lot of guys on the line of scrimmage and try to stop that run, because they got some guys that can flat out get it done, especially Achane. Devon Achane, I mean, that dude is fast, and he is elusive, and he's a problem. And the way McDaniels runs his offense, he was such a great run game coordinator for the 49ers back in the day. And he's got a lot of eye candy, a lot of misdirection and motion and things that can get your defense leveraged the wrong way. And when they do that, it's kind of like Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, it's going to the house. It's not just a 10-yard game. It's maybe 65. And that's what the Bucs have to have to game plan against, because they want the ball in Ewers' hands on 3rd and long. So they're going to have to really overcommit to the run, try to play the pass on the way to stopping the run, and then hope that they can hold up against, some of Miami's receivers and this rookie quarterback. They still have Jalen Waddle, right?
Mm-hmm.
They've got some guy. I mean, they're not loaded. Malik Washington, Cedric Wilson Jr., Nick Westbrook, Ekine. I mean, there's a few. Taj Washington. These are not household names necessarily. There's no Cheetah, right? There's no guys like that down there. But there's targets, and I think Ewers will be better in this week than he was in the first week when that game was a game for about a half, and then Cincinnati just pulled away, and they got 2 interceptions, and that's really what the Bucs are hoping for is give me a couple turnovers from the rookie quarterback again, and maybe you can get on top of Miami, make them have to play from behind, and then you can help your defense out that way instead of trying to grind it out. I don't think they'll sit on the ball the way they did last week against Carolina. At least I don't think they should. Maybe they will, but that game plan was not a very good one. Did keep them in the game, but they needed a last minute drive, and something broke down and a miscommunication. The ball's intercepted, and that's that. And Baker has to start playing well, like now, right? Like you go 16 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and I think now he's like about 6 or 7 interceptions and that many touchdowns these last 6 or 7 weeks. So his season is completely flopped for the worse. He's not going to throw for 4,000 yards like he threw for 4,500 under Cohen. There's, in short, injuries notwithstanding, because it's a huge part of their story this year, but he has not had the kind of year he had under Liam Cohen, because I think it's fair to say that at this point, Josh Grizzard is not Liam Cohen, and look what Cohen has done for Trevor Lawrence and for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Those guys may end up with the number 1 seed in that division. It's incredible how well they're playing. And Trevor Lawrence the last couple of weeks has just gone off, so he's done for Trevor what he did for Baker a year ago. So yeah, they miss him. And for all the people who are like, well, they should have kept Cohen. That was never going to happen, right? And Todd Bowles had just won his, 3rd straight NFC South title. And yeah, they got beat in the playoff game, but they offered Cohen to become the highest paid offensive coordinator in football after 1 year.
And he accepted it.
He said, yes, I'll do it. I'll take it. Right up until the point where he talked to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who said, hey, you cannot go back to the Bucs with this, but we want to hire you as head coach. And if you'll just deal with us exclusively, we fired Trent Baalke. How soon can you get up to Jacksonville? And then he went 0 dark, 30 on the Buccaneers. They couldn't find him for a day. By that time, he had already accepted the job as a head coach of the Jaguars. So it wasn't as if the Bucs didn't try. People wanted them to just kick Todd overboard. Oh, there's somebody that wants Liam. Oh, no. Everyone has forgotten that they made Liam public enemy number 1 for doing this, right? Like, how dare he, spurn this football team? He knew what he was doing. There's only 32 of these jobs in the world, and he took it. But it did not leave the Bucs in a better place. I can tell you that, and so they got to find a way down in Miami to get a win, any win. I don't care if it's 1 point, half a point, however they got to do it. And if they do that, regardless of what happens to Carolina against Seattle, they'll have 1 game at home against Carolina, second one in 3 weeks. And I think sometimes, when you win that first game, it's hard to sweep a team, right? It's hard there's going to be adjustments made by the Bucs. You may or may not be prepared for it, but definitely hard for them to sweep. The Bucs swept last year, but they got, kind of a break with a fumble late in the game that the Carolina was about to end it with a field goal, and then Chuba Hubbard funneled, and Anthony Nelson recovered, and that changed everything, right? You're going to need turnovers. You're going to need stuff like that. But in general, just get a win. Find a way to win the game, and then roll the dice next week in a winner-take-all scenario and see who can handle the pressure. And that pressure will be applied by your home fans as well, you would think. I mean, I don't know how many people are going to come to the game, but
a division title on the line. I think there'll be a lot of people at the game.
I would hope. They might be there with their fire bowl signs or something, but I don't know. We'll see. But they're just 1 win in Miami against a 3rd string quarterback who is a 7th round pick from playing to win a division title, right? Like, that's 60 minutes, man. If you can't get fired up for that, You have no business being in the postseason, and the way you're playing, you're not going to get there anyway. But they still have a chance to do something about it. So I don't know. I look for them to give their best effort. Could be wrong. Hadn't been very good effort of late, but they have every reason to play their best. Hey, chances are you did okay for Christmas, but for those of you who did not, I got a solution, right? It's called Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall. We told you to go there before Christmas. Now you may have to go there afterwards to make your wife or your husband or your girlfriend or your boyfriend happy because they weren't that thrilled with what you got them for Christmas. So go into Breitling Boutique, still center of the mall, above where the Santa Claus used to be before he, threw out all those toys to you over the night. And if you do that, that's where you're going to find the Breitling Boutique. They've been in International Plaza now for going on 6 years. Tremendous customer service. Not good customer service. I said tremendous. They're going to show you all their products that they have, walk you through it, find something that you can absolutely afford and that he or she will love. And while supplies last, they have the NFL collection. That's 32 team watches, each one different and designed specifically for that team that is your favorite team. They've got the team colors and the face of the watch, the chronomat watch, logos inside, all of that. But they're stunningly beautiful and certainly a collector's items that you can hand down for generations. It's Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall. Make sure when you go, you tell them you heard about it on Sports Day Tampa Bay. All right, we'll wrap up the week with a couple of mailbag questions. What do you say?
Sure. Michael had asked, last year the Bucs offense ranked 3rd in the NFL. This season it's fallen to 23rd. How does an offense fall off a cliff like that in 1 year?
I would say injuries have been a big story for them. Clearly Mike Evans missed a lot of time. Chris Godwin came back probably too soon, missed 2 games, played 2 games, then was out a bunch. Emeka Buka, who was terrific, having to move to wide receiver 1, losing Bucky Irving for as long as they did, having to reshuffle the entire offensive line, where they actually got off to a 5-1 start and were 6-2 at one point. So you give them credit for that. But I just don't think, we can't discount the fact that you have a new play caller. You have a new sheriff in town. You have a guy that I think is a bright guy. I think he's a good football coach. But Josh Grizzard had never called a play before this year. Neither had Dave Canales, by the way, except back at Carson High School. And he managed to get through it. Now, those were not great offenses, and neither is this one, right? I mean, you had a couple of years back in the day where the Bucs were last or near the last, and then Liam comes in, and they're a top 5 rushing team. We've seen what he's done for Jacksonville. So it's unfair to compare, young coaches sometimes. But, I always say this. I understand why the desire was to find someone in-house, why you thought the continuity was king, because, your team did really well last year and you didn't want to have to have a 4th straight offense to learn, a 4th straight scheme or whatever. I get why they did it. But it doesn't mean that, that the best coordinator for your football team in all of the world, not just Tampa Bay, but in all of the world, happen to be the guy down the hall. Like, what are the chances that you'd go 3 for 3? I mean, that's what you were trying to do. You're trying to go 3 for 3. Like, this guy does his job, he may be offered the next head coaching job somewhere, and that's a cycle that defensive head coaches face. But, it hasn't happened, right? It just hasn't happened. So,
but it's been hard to, I don't want to say hard to fathom, but last year the Bucs, were 28 points a game, were one of the best offenses in the NFL.
Yeah.
But Baker led the league in interceptions, and then you add his fumbles on top of it. And you're kind of going, how did they do that? This year he cuts way back on that stuff.
Yeah.
And the offense is a lot worse. Now, a lot of it's injuries. The offensive line's banged up. He finally had his all 4 receivers together in week 15, 16, whatever, game 15. He's banged up. We know that too. But I a lot of it is I think, Grizzard has not made the strides that Canales and Cohen did as an offense coordinator in this offense.
Yeah, and
You haven't seen the improvements all year like you did
I
with
think
those
he
guys.
was hamstrung early on, though. I think
No,
early
yeah.
on, rather than be able to input his scheme and you know uh, kind of find out what works. He was playing whack a mole. I mean, he was just
Mm-hmm.
he's just trying to problem solve.
No
Moving
question.
Graham Barton from center to guard and Bredesen from guard to center, and like it was triage. You know what I mean? And then he starts to get some guys back, but now you're so far down the line, the losing happens. I also think once teams got tape of what he was trying to do, it's not that exotic, right? They're not executing at a high level in anything, run game included. And so I think there, from what I know, and I'm the untrained eye, but from people that watch film for a living, they tell me, yeah, it's not well disguised. Like there's not a whole lot of, you know, mystery to what they're trying to do based on formation and all that stuff. So,
They're trying to run the ball 30 times a game.
yeah, there's that, which, I'm sorry, but if you're missing your two starting guards and that's the weak point of your offensive line, and your center hasn't played all that great, I don't know that I'm running inside zone very much, like that seems like you're kind of like expecting a different result with guys that aren't playing that well. So, but that's what they've been doing. And, I think for whatever reason, they just haven't done enough on offense consistently. And you can blame that on, a young offensive coordinator. I mean, what were the odds? And look, Canales was not Bill Walsh, okay? Like I heard some things about him. There are people that don't think he should be near a playbook. Great optimist bully, as Mayfield calls him, sets the tone, culture guy all the way. You can see that with Carolina.
Which is that's exactly what you need out of a head coach.
Tremendous for a head coach. I thought he'd be a better head coach than a coordinator, but unfortunately for Carolina, he's still calling plays. They have, John Idzik kid that's the coordinator by name only, but it's still Canales' deal. And consequently, they're averaging 19 points a game. I mean, that's not good, right? They beat the Bucs with 24, but it's not good. And yet he's got his team first place in the NFC South, right? But then you go to Cohen, and it's like, whoa, now there's a guy, right, that is culture plus X's and O's. Like his offense was so much better than what they were used to. And Baker will tell you, that it was a breath of fresh air. He was getting in and out of bad situations. He had answers, he had audibles, and they were clicking, And there's a lot of swag with Liam too, like that matters sometimes. And so, Baker was confident, Liam was confident, and now I just think some of that confidence has left the building, And it doesn't mean that Josh is, a bad coordinator or never be a good one or whatever. It's just it's new to him, He doesn't have all the answers. This is his first time around. And what you find out is those guys on the other side of the ball have been coaching for a long time, longer than you've been alive. They're really good at what they do. They can figure you out. Like whatever it is you put on tape, after a couple weeks, they're like, yeah, we got it. We got this guy. That's how the league is. And you've got to adjust to what they just adjusted to. And you wonder how much of that cat and mouse is going on every week because he's a young guy and now people kind of know what he's about and they're going to combat it, And so it's not been easy sledding for him. I feel for him. I don't know how to judge him other than by the points they score, right? Or the yards they gain, but it hasn't been good. And consequently, I don't have to tell you what you are. The league will, as Bill Parcells said. And right now, they're not a good offense, and he's been coordinating the whole thing. So unfair to I maybe expect him to be, Kyle Shanahan right now out of the bat, but he's taking his lumps, and now we'll see what he does with it. So it's got to be better, man. It's you just got to play better offense. Simple as that.
All right, Chuck in West Palm Beach wrote, the more I look at this Bucs season, the more I think it's the lack of players, not plays. That said, why has Jason Licht not been able to address defense like he did with the signings when he signed Sue, Shaq Barrett, JPP? Same with drafting Devin White, Mike Edwards, etc. Did we lose scouts?
You lost one, a big one, and I thought it would be a tremendous loss, and it has been, and that's John Spytek. Now, Spytek's the GM of the Las Vegas Raiders, and your next statement would be, "Well, a lot of good he did them," you know, and that's fair, right? That's fair. But he was a good sounding board for Jason, and however it transpired, um, it is. I like the fact that he said it's about players, not plays, because that comes right out of the Players Coach by Tom Moore with Rick Stroud, and it will tell you the same thing that you do. You think players, not plays, when you get in jams, and they frankly just don't have enough playmakers. Now they've gotten some guys back, which is what was curious about this last game. When you have Mike Evans, when you have Jalen McMillan, when you have Chris Godwin, when you have Emeka Buka and Bucky Irving, you really do have enough players, right? So it's on you to get the ball to those guys and start scoring points. But as far as what happened, nothing happened. They just didn't sign any good free agents. In fact, they didn't sign any at all, to be honest with you. I mean, Hassan Reddick is it. Now, Shaq Barrett came in here, by the way, for a $4 million deal, 1 year, $4 million make it deal, and he hit the lottery and had 19 and a half sacks and, was franchised the next 2 years or whatever. Sue was a free agent that they paid. And who was the other one they traded for? JPP.
Yep.
Yeah, JPP was a trade, and they gave up pretty good draft compensation, but they already knew what JPP was in this league. So they were aggressive, right? They tried to find veterans. They tried to find impact guys that still had an upside that needed an opportunity. And they're not really doing that now. They didn't spend the money. I mean, they didn't spend the money. Oh, I always say this, follow the money, man. Like they were 80 million over the salary cap by the time Brady left here. They're nowhere close to that now. They've gotten their books back in order, but they're not going that way again. So, part of it is financial. I truly believe that.
All right, Harlan wrote, says Todd Bowles has steadfastly refused to give up the defensive coordinator duties. Yes, he has help, but still. I don't see how a head coach can provide appropriate supervision of all three phases of the game, plus game management when so heavily focused on one phase. When his story is written, will this be his undoing?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, there's
lots of head coaches.
There's a lot of head coaches that are coordinators. That's what I was going to say. I mean, most of them we know about on offense, but there's also a few on defense. And it's just whether you win or you lose. People are looking for reasons why you're doing this or why you're doing that. That's why, because he's the coordinator and it's too damn much for him to manage the game. Has he had mismanagements at time? Yeah, that's why he hired a guy to help him with clock management and things like that. I just think that when you have three coordinators in 3 years, you're not going to win the Super Bowl every season. Like it's not going to look great every single year. You can't hit 3 out of 3. And again, I think Josh will grow into what he's doing. I don't think he's the worst offensive coordinator I've seen. But I also don't see Todd giving it up. There's many times I have asked Todd, probably about once a year, it's like, hey man, would you consider? And it's like, no. And the reason is that he still knows in his heart of hearts that he's a better coordinator than the guys on his staff, better than Larry Foote, right? Better than George Edwards. Who's he going to turn it over to? It's his defense, right? He knows it better than anyone, the nuances and players that have played it, how they played it. So I don't see a change there, because if you're going to go down and you're Todd Bowles, you're going to go down knowing what you know, doing what you do. You want to go down swinging, not just throw your hands up in the air and say, well, let's see if somebody else can do a better job. He's always, I've asked him every year he's been a head coach, would you consider, are you considering? And it always comes back to one thing. No, because I think I'm the best guy for the job. Well, if you believe that, then, you're going to be here until they tell you can't be.
Ron asks, we had to endure one extra year of Dirk Cutter and now Todd Bowles. In both scenarios, we lost Todd Monken and we lost Liam Cohen. Why are the Bucs slow to change for better offensive-minded coaches under the same roof?
It's a fair point, but man, you'd have to have a little bit of a crystal ball. I mean, I think they knew what they had in Liam Cohen in terms of the play caller and the impact he had on their offense, and Baker in particular. I don't
that's
know.
why they made him the highest paid offensive coordinator for
Exactly.
a day or whatever it was.
That was they recognized that there was going to be at least a team, even after 1 year here, because of his success, would say, "Hey, we want you to be our head coach," and to try to stem that off before it got going, and everybody knew that Jacksonville was a team that was going to have an opening. They went to Liam Cohen and said, "Name your price, whatever it is, man. We're going to make you the highest paid offensive coordinator in football, in pro football, after 1 year." And he didn't sign it, was supposed to come in and sign it, and then he went zero dark, Liam, and popped up in Jacksonville as a head coach. Well, they had something the Bucs could not have offered them. And I just remember so many people on my timeline just killing Cohen for leaving here, when he actually got a chance to do what he wanted to do, which is be one of 32 in the league coaching an NFL team. Oh, by the way, they had some talent, starting with the number 1 pick from a few years ago in Trevor Lawrence. So, to him, it was the right thing to do. To the Bucs, it didn't work out so well. But you weren't going to go to Todd Bowles necessarily after a couple years in championships and go, "Hey, you know what? We could really use you, a guy like you upstairs." I don't think Todd would have been interested in that. So they went with their guy. He had just had success. They figured Baker would be better the second year, and he was for a few games. They didn't see it coming. They believed in their guys.
Well, and Liam had turned Jacksonville down.
Yeah, he did, because they had Trent Baalke, and that was the linchpin. As soon as Trent Baalke was set packing one day after they had put the offer on the table for Liam, that changed the dynamics. It just did. And then he was like, "Wait a minute," and this is what they told him: "Not only do we want you to coach here, we'll let you choose your own GM." That's right. I'll say it again. He got to choose the GM.
Not many coaches get to do it. Shanahan did in
right
San Francisco, but
and he told me, he goes, "Rick, what was, I feel bad, but what was I supposed to do?" I go, "Man, you did exactly what 99.99% of the people would do, So reminds me of remember what was it, Jerry Maguire movie with
Cuba Gooding Jr. and
Tom Cruise and Cuba Gooding, yeah, and Cuba's receiver coming out of Arizona State or something like that, and they go to the draft, and Tom's walking him around, introducing him to people, but at the same time he's trying to get representation for Cush, the quarterback, and he catches wind that Bob Sugar's after him or whatever, so he goes to his hotel room and playing around with him, and then lo and behold, Sugar calls and he goes, "Let me get that," and he acted as if he was on the other end of the line, but it was the other agent, and so Cruz is like, "You didn't sign anything with him, did you?" Because I was really fond of "my word is as strong as oak," and that's what I thought about with Liam. Is like, no, you got my word. I'll be in tomorrow. It's like, oh, I was really fond of your word was as strong as oak. But what could he do? I mean, everything he wanted was made available to him, and I think most of us would have felt bad, but would have probably taken one of 32 jobs in the world. And that's what he did.
All right, Boog wrote us. Do the Glazers know football? When it comes to selecting GMs and head coaches, what's the process? Merry Christmas.
What's the procedure? They know football in that whether it's pumped or stuffed, but do they know football? I guess the bigger question is, do they know football people, right? They do know other owners who have connections with football people. So I would imagine, even though it's a family and they're maybe not, out there, in front of the cameras all the time, but they have several owners, in the league that they confide in, rely on. You just hope they get the right advice. But no, I don't, do they know football? I don't think there's many owners that actually know football. I mean, you say, well, Jerry Jones is the GM, so he played at Arkansas. He better know something. But that's not really the job of the owner to they hire good people. They, canvass the space they're in, the NFL. They listen to recommendations and interview some guy, and then they pull the trigger at some point. I mean, what can I tell you? It's not as if, they're doing film study and stuff like that. So,
the funny thing is our listeners in England want to know, do the Glazers know football? or soccer, as we call it.
That I can equivocally say, no, they do not. Clearly, they do not, because I haven't counted it up, but I think they have far more Super Bowl wins and playoff appearances than they do, Man U winning the Premier League or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, is that what it's called? Premier League, I guess?
Yes.
Yeah. So many of them over there. But yeah, no, they're fans. They got to be fans of the Miami Dolphins. Their dad tried to buy a bunch of teams, including sending a team to Baltimore, and it just never happened. But then it finally did. And I do think they know football. I mean, but are they going to run the team? Do they think they're the best ones to make high level decisions? I mean, they do make the decision about how much they're going to pay guys, and that affects your bottom line. If you're the Jason Light, and I'm not trying to say there's a conspiracy here, but like, you got to have resources, to go out and compete for free agents. And I don't know what that number is. Some years it's probably bigger than others based on what's going on. So, not really sure, but I think they know enough football. Your owners don't have to know football, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just got to know that you can hire the right people. That's, you did it in business. You've been wildly successful. Now translate that to the NFL, right? Go find me a coach or coaches, right, that are the best in the world. Like that's kind of where your focus has to be.
All right, John asks, most knowledgeable Bucs pundits and fans have been through enough losing streaks to know when a team is finished, even if they're mathematically alive. It feels like it's true now. But because of Baker Mayfield more than any other reason. If he's injured, why isn't he showing up on the injury report? If he's hamstrung by Josh Grizzard, is anyone speaking up? Or worst of all, if he is simply regressing for an unexplained reason. He's entering the final year of his contract, and the future looks more uncertain. Happy holidays to both of you. I'm not a podcast person, but listen to you guys on the good days and the bad ones. Thanks for serving a market that's starved for intelligent sports reporting.
Damn right you are, and damn right it is. And thanks for listening to us on this podcast, the best in the state of Florida. And that's for all sports, by the way. Is Baker hurt? And if he's not, why is he not on the injury report? He has been on the injury report. I don't know if he's on it this week. Probably not. And it's all self-reporting for the most part, right? But there's no question in my mind that you could put him on there every week with a knee injury. You could put him on there many weeks with an oblique injury, and they did. And I think it stops there for now. The shoulder is not healed, so you could put him down for his shoulder if he's wearing a harness and he has a separated, non-throwing shoulder. Put him down for that every week. I don't know that they're trying to hide injuries per se. There's this self-reporting deal. Derek Brooks, I don't think missed many games, but it always said that he participated in practice when I knew damn well he didn't. And I'm not suggesting somebody's lying here, but I don't think if your quarterback can go, he's the captain of your team, even if things aren't perfect this time of year, it's not for anybody, he's going to go, and if you're ready to go in this league, if you're full go, you can practice, you can go to meetings, you can do all those things. You're not restricted from a physical standpoint. Then you're just good, like you're out here, you're not on the injured list anymore because you're able to go hard. But they still have these things. Like Tristan Wirfs is still battling this abdominal injury, this oblique.
Mm-hmm.
And now he has a toe. Like I watched him limp around a little bit on Tuesday, got his foot wrapped up, his toe in particular on I think it was his left foot. But that's going to be something to watch,
Steve asks, barring a miraculous Super Bowl run, I think Todd Bowles will be let go at the end of the season. What are the chances of Jason Licht being fired as well? Defense has not been properly addressed for several years now. That falls on the GM. Love the podcast and happy holidays.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are in the Todd Bowles is going to be fired camp right now. I am not. I've not waded waist deep into that pool personally. I think I could be totally wrong about this. If you watch the documentary, you would say absolutely he's no different than John Gruden or Tony Dungy. He can't get him over the hump. They have to make a change. They got to make a change now. You could certainly sell that to me and everybody else, and maybe to themselves. But what I'm hearing is, if it's true or not, we'll find out shortly. What I'm hearing is they recognize that Bowles was pretty hamstrung this year, in particular, uh, especially because there's not much talent on defense, right? We've addressed the offensive problems, mostly the injuries, and you've got a young coordinator there too. So, if they truly believe this and have read Tom Moore's book that it's players, not plays, they should also understand that they need more players. Now getting players is the job of Jason Light. So maybe he's held responsible. Maybe. I really don't know. They're going to ask Jason first what they should do, right? They're going to say, what would you do if you were us? Like, how much better can we get next year if we do nothing? Well, what if we do this instead? How much better are we? They're going to make that calculus, because that's kind of their job, is to do exactly that. Now, sometimes a new broom sweeps clean, right? The old saying, new broom sweeps clean. You could start all over again, because depending on who you hire as a head coach, that may tell you who the GM is going to be anyway. In other words, if there's some guys out there that want to pick their own GM or don't want to work with a guy they're not familiar with, or Jason in particular, and he's their best option as a head coach, they'd have to consider that. They'd have to consider that. So I don't know. It doesn't feel like, there's a bunch of guys hanging around out there that would just be absolutely great. I think it's going to take time to kind of flush this out. But yeah, I mean, there's no one person in mind, and then there's everybody in mind, right? Like, you got to identify that next great coach, and Detroit obviously had one, and now he's in Chicago and winning, Vrabel was out there for a year, and that still slays me. Like, Vrabel was out there for a year and nobody hired the dude, and then he goes to New England and look what he's doing. So there's always a coach. You just got to be the organization that can identify him. I promise you this, Jason Light has somewhere in his drawer or his wallet a list of at least 5 names that he will call tonight, right, to be the next coach of the Buccaneers, if that's the decision the Glazers make. And I don't know that it's going to be. But I'll say this, if they lose out and you bring Todd Bowles and his staff, at minimum, there's going to be a huge overhaul of the staff. I mean, I like all those guys personally. It just hasn't happened, right? Thomas McGahee just hasn't happened, I mean, Kevin Ross has been here forever. He's one of the guys that, Bowles confides into. I'm not sure he's going to stick around. You could have some massive changes on the coaching staff, and I don't know if that's going to appease the Glazers or not. But it's going to be interesting, man. I don't really get the sense, and things can change and do in a hurry. As we sit here tonight, day after Christmas, I don't get the sense that the Glazers want to pull the trigger on Todd Bowles. They want him to give them a reason not to, right? They really do. Like, they're huge fans. They like Todd. It's hard to change an organization. Just look at, the docuseries when you go from, one coach to another, from Raheem Morris, whose teams were, they're undisciplined. He's a defensive coach, to Greg Schiano, right? Toes on the line, blowing the whistle, disciplinarian, college guy, right? Joe College. So I don't know what would be next. I don't know that. But,
well, speaking of next, Allie in the UK asked, one name I have not heard us talk about for possible new head coach is Kevin Stefanski. He once out in Cleveland, and not long ago he won head coach of the year. I would love to see a reunion with Baker. Your thoughts?
I think that'd be a tremendous hire, and it would fit the mode of you get what you don't have now. I truly believe this, that if and when Todd Bowles is going to be fired or resigns, because every coach is hired to be replaced, that whenever that happens, right, I know this much. The next coach in here will coach offense. I'd make book on that. I'd be, and there are good defensive coaches out there, but I would be shocked if they hire a defensive head coach. Because one, they found out that when you do that, you're constantly replacing offensive coordinators. And where has that gotten them? It's gotten them right here, losing 6 out of 7. So I think it's going to be an offensive coach, number one. And yeah, just there are guys going to be popping out there. You know, one guy I think about all the time, and it'd be his third try, but you know, if you're Jason Licht and you've worked with some guys in New England before and you see what they're doing with Drake May and you got Tom Brady in your ear, somebody's going to call and say, hey, you know, what you should do, Jason, is, you know, go hire Josh McDaniel up there in New England. Like, he's ready. He's right there. Look what he did with Drake May. I could see that being an interview. I really could, even though it didn't work for him in Denver or Oakland, right? Or not Oakland, but the Raiders. So, but, you know, I don't know what that list is, but there is one. And I never subscribed to but there's nobody out there. I was talking to somebody that said, you know, it'd be different if there was some great coach just waiting to coach here. But it's your job to identify those guys. Who is going to be the next great head coach? You know, is he in college? Is he in the pros? Is he a coordinator? Like, that's your job to go find that guy. And I imagine they're looking, and I imagine that list is constantly being upgraded. But as of yet, I don't know. I don't know how much, how much digging they've done. All right, just had a revelation here as we were getting ready to wrap up this podcast. I'm driving down to South Florida to watch the Dolphins and the Bucs play on Sunday, but I'm driving down on Saturday. What say a bunch of us, not just me, stops by in Sunrise and watches the Lightning play at Florida? How cool would that be?
Yeah, it's right. As right as you go in Alligator Alley, just get it right off there at Sunrise before you head to Miami.
That's it, man. It's a great doubleheader of Tampa Bay sports.
Yeah, Lightning are there. The Lightning are there Saturday, then they're home Sunday at 5:00 against Montreal.
That'll be tough.
So if you're watching the games on your TV, you got the Bucs at 1 and the Lightning at 5. So
it's just a big feast, right? Just more of the Christmas feast that you got going on over the holidays with the leftovers and all the sports you could hope for. Listen, have a safe end of the week here, the holiday season. Enjoy the fam. Don't get too stressed about the Bucs, no matter what happens. And we'll see if they can keep this thing alive and control their own destiny, as they say every single day. I'm so sick of that at this point, but they do, and they can, and they have to find a way to get a win. And then I still think it would be incredibly exciting because I love winner take all type deals, right? One game, hat and T-shirt, no matter what. Whoever wins, that's it, baby. Like, no more urgency than that. You're going home for the rest of the year, or you're moving on to the postseason, and everything you did in the regular season was worth it. And it's a new season, right? Like, those games are awesome, right? They just have so much at stake, everything riding on one game. So from a fan perspective, from a rider perspective, I'm hoping that it comes down to week 17, man. I think it'd be awesome.
I mean, it could be moved to Sunday night if it's a winner take all.
It sure could. Yeah, could be flex. Don't say that, though. I don't like night games. It's on deadline. It'd be terrible.
Now, Seahawks and Niners are playing that day.
Yeah, there's some good games.
Chargers, Broncos, they're all going to have, although it's not win or go home games, it's more win and get
the division title versus a wild card type thing, right?
Yep. I'm trying to see what other games.
There'll be a lot at stake.
Ravens Steelers could possibly be for that division.
That could be a division title. Yeah.
Although if the Ravens lose or Steelers win this week, then the Steelers clinch it, I believe. So
yeah, but the NFL's done a good job of extending the season with division games, and that's what you're seeing. So we'll see, but hopefully they can extend it and we can all move on to next week. But we will talk to you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Thanks for listening. As always, get on down to Breitling Boutique. If you messed up at Christmas, you can make a big mistake go away just by going to Breitling Boutique and checking out beautiful watches there, and let them know you heard about it on Sports Day Tampa Bay. For Steve Versnick, I am Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times. Have a great weekend, everybody. Talk to you on Monday.